They say love is the most beautiful feeling in the world, but no one warns you about the pain it leaves behind when it's gone. This is the story of a love that burned too brightly, too quickly, and faded into silence, a love that ended with words left unsaid and hearts forever scarred. They say love is the most beautiful feeling in the world, but no one warns you about the pain it leaves behind when it's gone. This is the story of a love that burned too brightly, too quickly, and faded into silence, a love that ended with words left unsaid and hearts forever scarred. It all started with a glance, a smile, and a heartbeat that felt like it belonged to someone else. We were two souls who found each other in the chaos of life, believing we were destined to be together. But destiny, as I've learned, has a cruel sense of humor. I remember the first time our eyes met. It was at a crowded cafe, the kind of place where everyone seems to be in their own world, yet somehow, our worlds collided. You were sitting by the window, lost in a book, and I was waiting for a friend who never showed. There was something about the way the sunlight caught your hair, the way your fingers traced the edges of the pages, that made me forget how to breathe. I didn't know it then, but that moment would change everything. Our first conversation was effortless, as if we had known each other for years. You laughed at my jokes, even the ones that weren't funny, and I found myself drawn to the way your eyes lit up when you spoke about the things you loved. We talked for hours, long after our coffees had gone cold, and by the time we finally said goodbye, I knew I wanted to see you again. And I did. Again and again. Every moment with you felt like a dream, the kind you never want to wake up from. We spent endless nights talking under the stars, sharing our hopes, our fears, and the secrets we had never told anyone else. You became my safe place, the person I could turn to when the world felt too heavy. I thought we were invincible, that nothing could ever break what we had. But love, as I've come to understand, is fragile. It's not the grand gestures or the passionate declarations that keep it alive, it's the little things. The quiet moments, the shared glances, the way you hold someone's hand when they're scared. And somewhere along the way, we stopped noticing those little things. It wasn't sudden. It happened slowly, like the changing of seasons. The texts became shorter, the silences longer. We stopped making plans, stopped trying. I told myself it was just a phase, that every relationship goes through rough patches. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I remember the last time we truly laughed together. It was a rainy afternoon, and we were stuck in your apartment with nothing to do. We ended up dancing in the living room, barefoot and carefree, like nothing else mattered. I wish I had known then that it would be the last time I'd see you smile like that. The arguments started soon after. Small at first, over trivial things like who forgot to buy milk or why you were always late. But they grew, fueled by the things we didn't say. The words we swallowed, the apologies we never made. We were both too proud, too scared to admit that we were falling apart. And then one day you were gone. Not physically, but in every way that mattered. The person who once felt like home became a stranger, and I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know if I even could. Looking back, I realized that love isn't always enough. Sometimes, no matter how much you care about someone, it's not enough to save what you have. And sometimes, the hardest part isn't letting go, it's accepting that you already have. This is the story of us. A story that began with a glance and ended with silence. A story of love, loss, and the pain of loving someone you can't hold on to. It's a story I'll carry with me forever, not because it was perfect, but because it was ours. Our love was like a roller coaster, moments of pure bliss followed by crushing lows. We laughed, we cried, and we held onto each other as if the world would end if we let go. But even the strongest bonds can fray when silence starts to fill the spaces between words. There were days when everything felt perfect, as if we were the only two people in the world. I remember the time we took a spontaneous road trip, driving for hours with no destination in mind. The windows were down, the music was loud, and your hand rested on mine as we sang along to songs we didn't even know the words to. It was in those moments that I felt invincible, as if nothing could ever touch us. But then there were the other days, the days when the weight of the world seemed to press down on us, And no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't find our way back to each other. The arguments became more frequent, the misunderstandings more painful. We stopped listening, stopped trying to understand. Instead, we built walls, brick by brick, until we could no longer see each other clearly. I remember the first time we went to bed, angry. It was over something small, something insignificant, but neither of us wanted to back down. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we had gotten to this point. You were just inches away, yet it felt like miles. I wanted to reach out, to tell you I was sorry, but the words caught in my throat. And so, we drifted further apart, one silent night at a time. There were moments when I thought we could fix it. We'd have a good day, a day where it felt like the old US, and I'd convince myself that everything would be okay. But those moments were fleeting, like trying to hold on to water as it slipped through my fingers. The cracks were too deep, the wounds too fresh. We were trying to rebuild something that had already crumbled. I often wonder if we were too stubborn, too afraid to admit that we were losing each other. Maybe if we had been honest, if we had let ourselves be vulnerable, things would have been different. But pride is a dangerous thing. It convinces you that you're right, even when you're wrong, and it keeps you from saying the things that matter most. The hardest part wasn't the fights or the misunderstandings, it was the silence. The way we stopped sharing our thoughts, our dreams, our fears. The way we stopped being each other's safe place. I miss the way you used to tell me about your day, the way you'd laugh at the smallest things. I miss the way you'd hold me when I was upset, even when you didn't know what was wrong. But most of all, I missed us. The US that believed in forever, the us that thought we could conquer anything. I didn't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, we stopped being a team. We stopped fighting for each other and started fighting against each other. And by the time we realized it, it was too late. I still think about the last time we tried to fix things. We sat across from each other at our favorite cafe, the same place where it all began. But this time, there was no laughter, no easy conversation. Just two people who had once been in love, trying to find their way back to something that no longer existed. We talked for hours, but it felt like we were speaking different languages. The words were there, but the meaning was lost. And when we finally said goodbye, I knew it was for the last time. There were no tears, no dramatic declarations. Just a quiet understanding that we had reached the end. Now, all that remains are memories, fragments of a love that once felt eternal. I still wonder if things could have been different if we had just spoken the words we were too afraid to say. But some stories don't have happy endings, they just end. They say time heals all wounds, but some scars never fade. Loving you is the most beautiful and painful thing I've ever experienced. And though we never said goodbye, I carry the weight of our silence every day. This is the pain of loving you, a story of unspoken goodbyes and a heart that never truly let go. The hardest part wasn't the fights or the misunderstandings, it was the silence. The words we never said, the apologies we never made, and the love we never admitted was slipping away. By the time we realized it, it was too late. I remember the last time we tried to talk, really talk. It was late at night, and the air between us felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the distance between us stretching further than the physical space. I wanted to reach out, to tell you how much I still cared, but the words felt stuck, trapped somewhere deep inside me. You looked at me, and for a moment, I thought you might say something, anything, to bridge the gap. But you didn't. And neither did I. That silence became our language. It was in the way we avoided each other's eyes, the way we stopped asking how the other's day had been. It was in the empty spaces where laughter used to be, in the hollow echoes of a love that once filled every corner of our lives. We were two people who had shared everything, yet now we couldn't even share the same room without feeling the weight of everything left unsaid. I often wonder if things would have been different if we had just spoken up. If I had told you how much I missed you, how scared I was of losing you. If you had told me what was really on your mind, instead of burying it beneath layers of quiet resentment. But we didn't. We let the silence grow, let it become a wall we couldn't climb. There were moments when I caught glimpses of the person I fell in love with. In the way you'd smile at something on your phone, or the way you'd hum softly while doing the dishes. But those moments were fleeting, like catching sight of a star on a cloudy night. They reminded me of what we had, but also of what we had lost. I try to hold on to those glimpses, to convince myself that they meant something. That maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back. But the truth was, we were already gone. We had become strangers living in the same space, orbiting each other, but never truly connecting. The day you left, I wasn't surprised. I had seen it coming for weeks, maybe even months. But that didn't make it hurt any less. You packed your things quietly, methodically, as if you were trying not to disturb the fragile peace we had somehow maintained. I stood in the doorway, watching you, wanting to say something, anything, to make you stay. But the words wouldn't come. When you finally turned to me, your eyes were filled with something I couldn't quite place.
Sadness, maybe.
Or regret. Or maybe it was just relief. You said my name, softly, like you were testing the sound of it. And then you said the words I had been dreading. I think it's time. I nodded, because what else could I do? There were no tears, no dramatic goodbyes. Just a quiet acknowledgement that this was the end. You walked out the door, and I stood there, listening to the sound of your footsteps fading away. For a long time after that, I blamed myself. I replayed every argument, every missed opportunity, every moment I could have said something, but didn't. I wondered if I had fought harder, if I had been braver, if things might have turned out differently. But the truth is, it wasn't just me. It was both of us. We let the silence win. Now, all that remains are memories, fragments of a love that once felt eternal. I still wonder if things could have been different if we had just spoken the words we were too afraid to say. But some stories don't have happy endings. They just end. They say time heals all wounds, but some scars never fade. Loving you is the most beautiful and painful thing I've ever experienced. And though we never said goodbye, I carry the weight of our silence every day. This is the pain of loving you, a story of unspoken goodbyes and a heart that never truly let go. Now, all that remains are memories, fragments of a love that once felt eternal. I still wonder if things could have been different if we had just spoken the words we were too afraid to say. But some stories don't have happy endings, they just end. The days after you left were the hardest. The house felt too big, too empty, as if it had absorbed the silence we had created. I wandered from room to room, half expecting to find you there, reading on the couch or humming in the kitchen. But you were gone, and the emptiness you left behind was a constant reminder of what we had lost. At first, I tried to fill the void with distractions. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, into anything that would keep my mind from wandering back to you. But no matter how busy I kept myself, you were always there, lingering in the corners of my thoughts. A song on the radio, a scent in the air, a phrase someone said. Everything seemed to bring you back to me, if only for a moment. I thought about reaching out to you, about calling or texting just to hear your voice. But every time I picked up my phone, I hesitated. What would I even say? I miss you? I'm sorry? Would those words even matter now, after everything we had been through? In the end, I always put the phone down, telling myself it was better to let you go. The nights were the worst. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I would replay our memories like a movie in my mind. The way you laughed, the way your eyes lit up when you were excited, the way you held my hand like you never wanted to let go. Those memories were both a comfort and a curse, reminding me of what we had while also highlighting what we had lost. I tried to move on, to convince myself that life would go on without you. And in some ways, it did. I went to work, I saw friends, I even went on a few dates. But it all felt hollow, like I was going through the motions without really being present. You had been such a big part of my life that without you, everything felt incomplete. There were moments when I thought I saw you, in a crowded street, in a passing car, in the face of a stranger. My heart would leap, and for a split second, I would believe it was you. But it never was. It was just my mind playing tricks on me, clinging to the hope that you might come back. As time passed, the pain became less sharp, less immediate. It didn't go away, but it changed, becoming a dull ache that I learned to live with. I started to accept that you were gone, that our story was over. But acceptance didn't mean I stopped caring. It just meant I had to find a way to carry the weight of our love without letting it crush me. I often wonder where you are now, what you're doing, if you ever think of me. Do you remember the good times, the way I do? Or have you moved on completely, leaving me behind as just a chapter in your life? I'll never know, and maybe that's for the best. Some questions are better left unanswered. Now, when I think of you, it's not with anger or regret. It's with a quiet sadness, a longing for what could have been. I don't blame you for leaving, and I don't blame myself for not being able to stop you. We were two people who loved each other deeply, but couldn't find a way to make it work. And sometimes that's just the way things are. They say time heals all wounds, but some scars never fade. Loving you is the most beautiful and painful thing I've ever experienced. And though we never said goodbye, I carry the weight of our silence every day. This is the pain of loving you, a story of unspoken goodbyes and a heart that never truly let go. Even now, years later, I still feel the echoes of our love. They're faint, like whispers in the wind, but they're there. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's enough to know that, for a little while, we had something real. Something that, even though it didn't last, changed me forever. So, I'll keep carrying the memories, the silence, the love. Not as a burden, but as a reminder of what it means to love and to lose. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important part of the story. They say time heals all wounds, but some scars never fade. Loving you is the most beautiful and painful thing I've ever experienced. And though we never said goodbye, I carry the weight of our silence every day. This is the pain of loving you, a story of unspoken goodbyes and a heart that never truly let go. Even now, years later, I still feel the echoes of our love. They're faint, like whispers in the wind, but they're there. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's enough to know that, for a little while, we had something real. Something that, even though it didn't last, changed me forever. I've learned to live with the ache, to let it settle into the quiet corners of my heart. It doesn't consume me the way it used to. Instead, it's become a part of who I am, a reminder of the depth of what we shared. I no longer resent the pain because it taught me something invaluable, that love, even when it ends, is never wasted. There are days when I still wonder what might have been. If we had been braver, if we had fought harder, if we had just said the words that lingered on the tips of our tongues. But those thoughts no longer haunt me the way they once did. I've come to understand that some stories aren't meant to have happy endings. Some are meant to teach us, to shape us, to remind us of our capacity to feel deeply. I've found peace in the idea that our love wasn't a failure. It was a chapter, a beautiful, heartbreaking chapter in the story of my life. And while it didn't end the way I had hoped, it was still worth every moment. The laughter, the tears, the quiet mornings, and the stormy nights, they all mattered. They all shaped me into the person I am today. I don't know where you are now, or if you ever think of me. Maybe you've found someone else, someone who makes you happier than I ever could. Or maybe you're still searching just like I was for so long. Whatever your life looks like, I hope it's filled with the kind of love you deserve, the kind that doesn't leave room for silence or regret. As for me, I've learned to open my heart again. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but I've found a way to let someone new in. It's different this time, quieter, steadier, less intense. But maybe that's what I need now. Someone who doesn't make me feel like the world is ending, but like it's just beginning. Still, there are moments when I think of you. When I hear a song we used to love, or when I pass by a place we used to go. In those moments, I let myself remember. I let myself feel the bittersweet ache of what we had, and then I let it go. Because that's the thing about love. It's not about holding on forever. It's about cherishing the time you had, even when it's over. So, this is where our story ends. Not with a grand gesture or a dramatic farewell, but with quiet acceptance. I'll always carry a piece of you with me, not as a burden, but as a reminder of the love we shared. And maybe in some small way, that's enough. They say time heals all wounds, but I don't think that's entirely true. Some wounds never fully heal. They just become a part of who we are. And that's okay. Because even in the pain, there's beauty. Even in the silence, there's a story worth telling. This is the pain of loving you, a story of unspoken goodbyes and a heart that never truly let go. But it's also a story of growth, of resilience, of learning to love again. And for that, I'll always be grateful. So, goodbye, my love. Not with tears or regret, but with gratitude for the moments we shared. You are a chapter in my life, and though the book has moved on, your words will always remain. And maybe, just maybe, that's the best way to close the story, with love, with grace, and with a quiet hope that somewhere in another chapter, we both find the happiness we deserve.